Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Chanavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Okay, Hare Krishna devotees. So today we're going to be speaking Bhagavad Gita from chapters 13 and 14. Chapter 13 entitled Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. Right, now in chapter 13, Krishna starts explaining the difference between the body and the soul. In chapter 2, we know that Krishna explained this. But now in chapter 13, he explains it again, but a little more in depth and a little bit differently. So let's explore that. We learn here about what is the body, who is the soul, what is a super soul, what is matter, and why does the soul get entangled. So the chapter opens with Arjuna asking Krishna about Prakriti. Prakriti is nature. And he asks about Purusha, who is the enjoyer. And he asks about the field and the knower of the field. He asks about knowledge and the object of knowledge. This is covered in the first two verses, which I will read. Arjuna uvacha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Prakritim Purusham Chaiva, Kshetram Kshetragnameva Cha, Etad Viditum Ichchami, Gnanam Gnanyam Cha Keshava, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Idam Shariram Kaunteya, Kshetram Iti Abhidhiyate, Etat Yo Vititam Prahur, Kshetragna Iti Tadvidah, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Right, so here, as I said, Arjuna asked the Lord all those questions. So what is Prakriti? Prakriti is nature. Purusha is the enjoyer. Consciousness is the soul, that's us within this body. Kshetra is the field of the body. Kshetrajna is to know the body, to identify with this body. Knowledge is to know the soul, that the soul is distinct from the body, and also that it is an eternal part of Krishna. So the object of knowledge, what is the object of knowledge? The object of knowledge is understanding that the individual soul, understanding the individual soul, the supreme soul, and the relationship between them. So Krishna now systematically reveals all these from the standpoint of bhakti or devotion. So we need to understand that material nature or Prakriti acts under the direction of Krishna, because Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, right? Ishvara Parama Krishna. So, of all the gods, Krishna is supreme. So he is therefore the controller, and therefore he directs Prakriti or nature. The field of activity, right? And that there is a difference between the field of activity and the knower of the field. He explains this. Then also he explains about the two knowers of the field in each body. And who are the two knowers of the field? There's two seated in the heart, right? The Jivatma, us, the minute soul, and the super soul who is Paramatma or Krishna. Now let's first break it up and talk about Prakriti, right? Which is material nature. So Prakriti or material nature, as we said, is acting under the direction of Krishna. And he provides a body, and this is sanctioned by the super soul. So now, because Prakriti is providing this physical material body, what happens? The body undergoes different interactions every day, right? The mind is thinking, the different senses are working and engaging various kinds of activities, and what happens? We are attracting karma, right? So karma is formed from that point. So material nature and God can be compared now. There's like a comparison. Material nature is like the mother, and the father is of all living entities is Krishna. So in this world we can see that the father impregnates the mother with the child, right? We know that, right? So similarly, Lord Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita that he is a seed-giving father of all living entities. So he impregnates this material nature with all living entities, with humans, with aquatics, with plant, different life forms. So just like that, how the mother nourishes the child by providing all eatables, Mother Nature nourishes all living beings with everything necessary for sustenance. Now, unfortunately, we get some ill-informed people, misinformed people, right? And they are tricked to think that material nature acts independently without any controlling authority. But Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita declares this very boldly, that material nature is working under his direction. This is quite easy to understand. So nature now controls every living being through the three modes. There are three modes that are controlling nature. These three modes are the gunas, called the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Now we'll explore that a little more when we do chapter 14, which is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. In reference to this, there's a nice verse, 13:22, where Krishna says, Shrotam chakshuhu sparshanam cha rasanam granameva cha atistava manaschayam vishvan upasevate. What does it mean? It means the living entities, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about by the mind. He thus enjoys a particular sense of objects. So remember we said about karma, right? We living entities are here in this material world. We are acting according to our desires, according to what our mind is dictating to us. And then what happens? our mind has all those impressions. And when the soul leaves the body, the mind leaves with three subtle elements, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the soul leaves the body, but it's got these impressions. And whatever that soul or that entity was thinking of at the time of leaving its body, that kind of body it will surely attain in its next life. So that's what Krishna means by this, that every living entity gets a different type of eye, how do we get animals then? How do we get rabbits with long ears? How do we get plants? How do we get frogs that have long legs and jump around? It all depends on the mind and the activities that the living entity practices during his lifetime and what he thinks when he is leaving this body. Therefore, it is so, so important for us to practice Krishna consciousness. And we'll get to that. There's various types, methods in which we can practice that. Right. Now, when the body is just a temporary machine, we know that, right? The soul or the jiva, us inside, are the actual parts and parcels of Krishna, and we drive this body. And therefore we say the soul is embodied because it's encaged inside our bodies. So when the soul is conditioned, it falsely identifies with the field, and therefore it suffers, it gets entangled. So let's go to the next thing that Arjuna spoke about. So, Purusha. Who is Purusha, or what is Purusha? Purusha has two meanings. The supreme enjoyer, who is God, Krishna, and the individual soul, who is distinct from the material world and its activities. So it's Krishna and it's the individual soul. Now both the supreme person, who is also known as Paramatma within our hearts, and the jivas also seated within the chambers of our hearts, us, right? They both are Purusha, but only the Supreme Lord is the ultimate independent enjoyer of all creation. Purusha is the enjoyer. We are not meant to enjoy. We are to be enjoyed. Krishna is the only enjoyer. Right? So we need to understand this. And once we understand this, what happens? We start offering all our activities to Krishna. And we do activities to please Krishna. So why? So that he can enjoy. So that's the mentality we are meant to have. So Srila Prabhupada explains that there is an intimate relationship between the living entity and the Lord. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. The living entity, however, rejects the sanction of Krishna and attempts to dominate nature, and is therefore referred to as the marginal energy. So, remember, the Lord is in the heart, and he is seated in our heart in the form of Paramatma, and therefore he is a friend to the living entity. He sits there and he observes all our activities. And as a friend, he tries to convince the living entity that material nature is not conducive to happiness. So we can take an example in this regard, right? It's like two birds sitting on a tree. This example is from scripture. Two birds sitting on a tree. One is eating the fruit. The living entities like that are enjoying the material activities. They are eating the fruits of this material tree. And the other is the witness. Who is the other bird? Krishna or Paramatma. Now he is witnessing our activities. So what happens? If you desire, Krishna will fulfill. Krishna is seated in the heart. Right? So when we desire that I want to enjoy, then Krishna will fulfill. And what happens? You get more entangled. So let's speak about consciousness. Consciousness is the jiva, the soul. The soul is present within the body in the form of consciousness. So we need to understand that when the soul leaves the body, we declare the body unconscious. The body becomes unconscious, and the body is declared dead. So consciousness is in the form of the jiva. So understanding that I am not this body is the first step towards liberation. So basically in this chapter 13 we need to understand Three very important things. Atma, us, Paramatma, Krishna, and the body. We need to identify that we are not this body, understand who we are, understand who Krishna is, and understand our relationship with Krishna. That's the object of knowledge. So, we say that the soul is made of subtle qualities, right? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. Also, with that regards, is another nice verse, chapter 15, verse 8. So I'll just tell you quickly. Shariram yadavapnoti yachchapi utmat ishvaraha kritvaitani samyati vayur gandhani shavayat. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to get another. So, as we explained earlier, right? It's very important about our activities and what we think, because these create impressions on the heart. So you go to your next body, just as aroma is carried through air, likewise, the mind takes on a certain kind of consciousness into the next body. And the next body is determined by that consciousness. There are 8,400,000 species of life forms. And this explains why. So Krishna says also in 8.6, Yam yam vapi smaranam bhavan tyajyati anta kevalam tam tam etayati kaunteya stat tat bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So that's why it's important to understand nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So the field, let's talk about the field now. The field is the body where all the activities happen. So according to Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood through between verses 5 and 7 of chapter 13. I don't think I'm going to have a chance to read all of those because we started quite late. Okay, so if you have some time, please read verses 5 to 7 of chapter 13. It nicely explains how the body is made up of 24 elements, which is known as the field of activity, this body, right? So there are 5 gross elements. There's the air, water, fire, ether. That's 5 gross elements. There's 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, and false ego. There are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge. That is, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your skin. 5 working senses: voice, hands, legs, anus and genitals. 5 sense objects: smell, taste, form, touch, sound. The last element is unmanifested. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well understand the field of activity. One should understand that the body is ever changing, but the soul remains unchanged. Please, can you take this call for me? I'm so sorry. See if there's a message. Thanks. So, the body, or we, are affected by the dualities of material nature, happiness and distress. Right? Why? Because interactions in this field, or in this body, when the senses come into contact with material nature, they want, they desire, they act. And what does this bring about? Dualities, happiness and distress. But Krishna says, in 2.14, he says, we need to tolerate these, we need to find a balance. He says, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Very difficult. How do we do this? So Krishna tells you what to do, and then he tells you how to do it. That's the mercy of Krishna. So hopefully we'll get to that point, right? Before 7 Arti. So let's talk, before we get to there, let's talk about the knower of the field. So the individual knows his body. But the super soul, Paramatma or Krishna, he doesn't know just this body. He knows all bodies. Every single body is known by Krishna because he is the source of creation. He is the cause of all causes. Sarva karana karanam from Brahma Samhita, isn't it? So the soul and the super soul are spiritual, but the super soul is superior. This body is material, super soul is spiritual. The soul is trapped in the body and has different facilities for sense enjoyment. The soul wants to enjoy, but he is unable to get unlimited enjoyment. Enjoyment is restricted to one type of body. We humans may want to enjoy like the demigods. Can we? Not possible, because we chose this body. Demigods have a little more powers and they have a higher level of enjoyment. Right? The animal may want to enjoy like a human, but he can't. So we must understand that there's a superior and there's a subordinate. Krishna is superior, we are subordinate. Is it? Okay, thank you very much. I believe I can continue while Aarti is on. Thank you, Mataji. So I won't rush too much. We'll slow down. Okay. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same. If you think that Paramatma, the first knower, and Jivatma, that's us, are the same, then that's very contradictory to what Krishna is teaching us. We should not misunderstand this. It's like misunderstanding a rope to be a serpent, Prabhupada says. So we have fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature according to different karma. We said that. Super soul, he is infallible. Another name of Krishna is Achyuta. Achyuta means infallible. So Achyuta or Krishna is infallible. He is uncontaminated by the three qualities of material nature. He is transcendental. So we must know these two knowers of the field. We must be able to distinguish between them. That's what Krishna wants in this chapter 13. But now, unfortunately, sometimes we have materialistic people, right? They are convinced that the body is here for what? For sense enjoyment. And they make statements like, life is short. Enjoy it. Enjoy the ride while it lasts. And then what happens to them? Unfortunately, some of them might be thinking of anything not so auspicious, not so transcendental, and they will take on that particular type of body in their next life. So, life is a ride and life is short, enjoy, We should not misuse the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very, very rare. It takes such a long time to get this human form of life. Now let's talk about the relationship between these two knowers, the super soul and the Jiva Atma, the minute soul or us. By the way, who knows where the soul is situated in the body? It's situated in the chambers of the heart. All right. The relationship between Paramatma and Jiva Atma is explained, right? Purusha Paraha refers to the super soul, who is a transcendental enjoyer. Srila Prabhupada explains that there is an intimate relationship between the living entity and the Lord, of course, because we are sparks of super soul. We are minute sparks. We come from Krishna. Krishna has created all of us. Krishna is the source of creation. So of course there's going to be an intimate relationship. There's intimate relationship between ordinary human mother, parents and children. So what about the supreme parent, seed-giving father of all living entities? Now the living entity, unfortunately, he rejects the sanction of Krishna and attempts to dominate nature and is therefore referred to as the marginal energy. So the Lord is in the heart, we said, and he tries to convince us. Convince us to at least turn, like those two birds sitting in the tree. At least stop eating the fruits of material nature. Turn and look at the bird sitting next to you. So in other words, Jivatma, turn and look at Paramatma. Desire to transcend or advance on the spiritual path. And Krishna will fulfill that desire as well. The process of knowledge. Chapter 13, verses 8 to 12 cover this section. Right? The Supersoul is the object of knowledge. True knowledge is devotional knowledge. Krishna lists 20 qualities that define knowledge, and Prabhupada emphasizes that these qualities culminate in pure devotion. So let's just briefly go through those 20 qualities. Qualities are, Krishna says, humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadfastness, self-control, renunciation of objects of sense enjoyment, absence of false ego, perception of the evil, birth and death, disease and old age, detachment, freedom from entanglement, mindedness, constant and unalloyed devotion to Krishna, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for God. The process of knowledge leads to unalloyed devotion to Krishna, and eventually the person or the practitioner reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is our goal. So it is a mouthful. Yes, Krishna has given us these 20 qualities, but we need to try and adapt these qualities if we want to reach our supreme goal, that is reaching Krishna. Very important, accepting a spiritual master. It's very, very important part of the process. Why? Because he can impart knowledge because he has seen the truth. The reference for this is chapter 4, verse 34 of Bhagavad Gita. We need to acquire this knowledge to free ourselves from the 4 fundamental miseries: birth, death, old age, disease. Why? This birth, death, old age and disease is not present in the spiritual world. Where is the spiritual world? Look in the center there on the top. See that little lotus flower where Srimati Radharani and Krishna are sitting? That's Krishna Lok, or Goloka Vrindavan. So when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that my devotee never perishes, he reaches that eternal abode of mine where there is no return, that's what he's talking about. It's a high bar to reach though. We need to practice what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita to reach there. So we go through a spiritual master because he can direct us. So this birth, death, old age and disease, nobody in this material world can say that they are entirely happy. No matter how much money you have, no matter how beautiful your body is, no matter how healthy you are or what good children you have, you are still subject to some kind of disease. Even if it's like a mosquito bite or an insect bite, there is still some discomfort, right? And you have to be born. What is born has to die. Those are 2 very big miseries. The body has to get old, no matter how much makeup you put, how much plastic surgery you go for, the body is going to age. Dehinosmin yata dehe, komaram yovanam jara. So the body goes through different changes in this body. Goes from youth to old age to disease, youth to old age. It changes. The body is born as a baby. You don't look the same when you are old. Right. So to understand that the body does activities and sees that the self does. Okay, it's a very nice saying that I picked up from the purports. It says, to understand that the body does activities and sees that the self does not do activities, such a person actually sees. What does that mean? Confusing, right? So, the body does activities. Yeah, the body does activities. It's given the tools to do activities. We spoke about the senses, the hands, the legs, the tongue, the mind. But we should know that the self, the Jiva Atma, is not the doer. Right? So in conclusion of chapter 13, Srila Prabhupada sums up this chapter by stating that nature, enjoyer and consciousness describes material nature, supersoul and the living entity. One should know the distinction between body, the owner of the body, and the supersoul, as we explained earlier. To reach that stage, we have to practice unbreakable devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna without deviation means engaging oneself in the 9 processes of devotional service. The 9 processes. I'm going to give you all a little story on that just now. So, chanting, hearing, worshipping, offering respect, all these are part of the 9 processes of devotional service, and this is described in the last verse of the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that process should be followed. And a nice example now of a personality from our scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam gives it, who had these 9 processes of devotional service is Maharaj Ambarishi. So let's just tell you a little bit about him, right? So Maharaj Ambarishi was a very powerful ruler. He was from the Surya Vanshi dynasty. And he performed his kingly duties very, very perfectly. And while remaining entirely dedicated to his spiritual life, he performed his duties. He practiced all 9 forms of devotional service, like the hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, bowing before the Lord. But his senses and mind were fully engaged while he was doing duty. It was fully engaged in the Supreme Lord. So this is how the pastime goes. There was a conflict, right? Durvasa Muni, you all heard of Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni gets very easily angered. So Ambarishi Maharaj was doing a fast. He was doing a vrat. And on the final day of his very long fast, I think it was a year-long fast, Ambarishi was about to break his fast with a sip of water. And at that crucial moment, who appears? Durvasa Muni. And he arrived as a guest. Now we know, Atithya Deva Bhava, when a guest arrives, we've got to treat him like God. Utmost respect and serve him. So Ambarishi was observing the protocol of hospitality, and he requested the sage to eat first. But Durvasa Muni left to bathe and delayed his return. He took long to come back from the river. So, as he was advised by some Brahmins to adhere to the strict fasting time, while still respecting the guest, he decided he'll only take a sip of water. Because you take a sip of water is like starting your fast or breaking your fast. So the Brahmin said, Maharaj, the time is passing, auspicious time, you have to break your fast, take a sip of water. So he took a sip of water. But he didn't eat because he was going to serve his guest. So what happened now? Ambarishi did so. Durvasa Muni became very angry. He used his mystique power and he summoned a fiery demon, Kritya, to kill the king. Right? Now what happens? Because, remember, Ambarishi Maharaj was engaging in these 9 processes of devotional service. He had the absolute protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead of Krishna. Right? So this divine protection happened now. He was so surrendered that Krishna released his Sudarshan Chakra. Now once the Sudarshan Chakra is released, it means big trouble. So Sudarshan Chakra went after Durvasa Muni. Instantly began chasing Durvasa Muni. So what happens now? Durvasa Muni fled everywhere. He went to Lord Brahma, he went to Lord Shiva, he even went to Lord Vishnu. But no one could protect him from the chakra. As the offense against a pure devotee is very, very, very severe. So, Durvasa Muni was advised to go and seek forgiveness from King Ambarishi himself. Durvasa Muni returned in a very humbled attitude, and he begged for the king's mercy. And of course, the king, being a pure devotee, was so forgiving and so compassionate, and he prayed to Sudarshan Chakra to please, return to the Supreme Lord and not harm Durvasa Muni. So, this is the potency of practicing the 9 modes of devotional service. Very nice pastime. Also, another nice thing that came to mind is, hearing is very important. It's also one of the 9 modes, right? Hearing is very important. Sometimes we may not be able to read, but if you hear from authority, it's very purifying. If you hear with love and devotion, so it reminds me of Queen Rukmini. Queen Rukmini heard about Krishna. She only heard about Krishna. We know that Queen Rukmini is the goddess of fortune. In Krishna's pastime, she came as Rukmini. But in that pastime, she only heard about Krishna. And just by hearing attentively from the correct authorities, she became so attracted to the Supreme Lord that she poured her heart out in a letter to Krishna. Krishna received that letter, and Krishna went to save Rukmini. So hearing is also very, very important. Okay, so it takes us to chapter 14. How are we doing for time? Very well. Okay, chapter 14. The 3 modes of material nature. So this chapter helps in understanding the 3 gunas. Krishna touched base on it in chapter 13. Now he's going to expand on it a little bit further. The modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and how they bind the soul, and how to transcend them through devotional service. So we'll speak a little bit more on devotional service now. So the first reference, chapter 14, verse 1, let's read that verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Param bhuya pravakshyami jnananam jnanam uttamam yat gnatva munayah sarve param siddhim ito gatah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This means Bhuyaha means again to indicate that Krishna, he will repeat that knowledge that was previously mentioned. He's saying, he used the word Bhuyaha, meaning that he's going to repeat. He's going to repeat what he said. He's picking off from chapter 13 now. And he says here that the best kind of knowledge which deals with the 3 modes of material nature, he's going to speak about. Great sages attained the correct perception of the supreme perfection by realizing this kind of knowledge. And Krishna says that this knowledge is superior to knowledge given thus far. The knowledge of what? What knowledge are we speaking about? The 3 modes of material nature, right? So Krishna says that this knowledge is superior to knowledge that he has given us thus far. And he explains what the modes are and how they bind us. Now, Prabhupada describes the modes as ropes binding the soul. Imagine ropes binding the soul. That's how Prabhupada describes the 3 modes. So goodness binds. Goodness is very good. It's a best guna, but it still binds us. Goodness binds how? With comfort and knowledge. It's better than the other modes, but still traps us here. Passion binds us with desire and work. And ignorance binds us with laziness, delusion. Now, chapter 14, verse 5. It speaks about the nature and the effects of the sattva, rajas, and tamas gunas, the 3 modes of material nature. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. So chapters 5 to 9 I'll read out the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these three modes. So remember in chapter 13 what we spoke about. When the senses now, in this field, comes in contact, what happens? Then he goes on to say, O sinless one, referring to Arjuna, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. You see, he becomes conditioned. It's also going to get bound here, right? So we'll speak about how we're going to transcend even the mode of goodness just now. Then the mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material, fruitive actions. Tamas now? O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is delusion, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which binds the conditioned soul. So every mode binds, but differently. Some are better than the others. Right? Goodness on the top. Then Krishna goes on to speak about the destinations of persons dominated by each mode. Very interesting. What's their destination? So from 14 to 18, Krishna goes and speaks on that. So let's see what Krishna says. Right. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of great sages. Now, it's very nice. Now, Krishna conscious devotees, they don't like to go to the heavenly planets. It's very nice there. There's lots of comforts. It's really, really very opulent lifestyle, but it's still within the material creation. So, when people reach, or souls, jivas, reach the heavenly planet, they enjoy for as long as their fruits of the good activities last. And then they fall back down to this material world. Shri Shri Radha Radha Nath Ki Jai. So they fall back to this material world. What do the devotees want? They want to transcend. And they want to go back to Krishna, the Supreme, our Supreme Father. Then Krishna says, when one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth amongst those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. So see how we have to be very, very careful of our activities. Then he says, the result of pious action is pure, and it is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness. Alright, so Krishna spoke about the destination. Then Krishna goes on to speak about how the gunas as the doers lead to transcendence. Then he goes on to say, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance develops foolishness, madness, and illusion. Now, 1420 is very important because it speaks about rising above the gunas and how one gets freed from birth, death, misery, old age, and disease. So let's read verse 20, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Gunanetana trin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu chara dukhair vimukto amritam ashnute. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Krishna is saying now, when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So, you'll enjoy in this life when you transcend the three modes, and after this life, you'll attain the supreme abode, Krishna Lok, or Goloka Vrindavan. 1426 is the most important verse, where it speaks about one who is engaged in unalloyed devotional service, how he immediately transcends the three modes. So let's read that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sakunan samitityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Krishna is saying here, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So, do we want to transcend? Who wants to transcend here? No one. Okay, some of us. Right. So, Srila Prabhupada calls this verses 14 to 27. He calls it the essence of this chapter. Verses 14 to 27 of chapter 14. Right. Now, we're going to go on to a practical guide on how to transcend the modes in our daily lives. And we came across the 9 modes of processes of devotional service earlier on. We described it nicely, the example of Maharaja Ambarishi. So basically we need to practice those processes. And very importantly of all those processes is chanting and hearing. We all know this. We need to chant daily. So Lord Chaitanya is so merciful, Krishna is so merciful. See, in different yugas, there were different kinds of yagnas prescribed. In Kali Yuga, the Lord prescribed a special type of yagya, which is called the Sankirtan yagya. He prescribed the chanting of the holy name. That is the sacrifice for this day and age. That's what Lord Chaitanya has taught us. So therefore we say chant daily. And hear and chant. Because when we hear the mantra enters through our ears and enters into the heart. And that's a purifying process. And we're engaging all our senses. We're engaging our tongue. We're engaging our hearing. And also, we are benefiting those living entities that are hearing the chanting. So you could be walking in your garden and chanting japa. Chant it a little bit loud. The insects are hearing, the birds are hearing. And you know what? Even the plants are hearing. Their level of consciousness is low, but they are living. So Prabhupada repeatedly states that chanting is nirguna, coming directly from the spiritual world. So, the effects it has on the modes. It lifts the mind from ignorance and passion. It purifies the consciousness. And it connects the soul to Krishna. And that's how it transcends the 3 modes of material nature. Right? So there's different types, okay? Chanting and hearing. Following a very nice sattvic diet is another way. We offer what we eat. It becomes sanctified and then it's called prasadam. Right? So, Krishna prasadam is what we should be taking. By eating prasadam, also one can transcend the 3 modes of material nature. All we have to do is offer it with love and devotion. Krishna is not asking for a huge feast. Whatever you eat, offer with love and devotion. Patram pushpam palam toyam. So, another form of practice will be to regulate our daily sadhana, our daily prayer, if you want to call it. Get up in the morning for Mangal Arti. If your body is able to do it, please do. Attend Mangal Arti at the temple or do Mangal Arti in your house. Read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Perform Kirtan. Hear Kirtan. And it works. Why does it work? Because as we said, it regulates or neutralizes passion, ignorance, and devotion. It transcends all three gunas. Another way, offer all your work to Krishna. One might say, but I work every day, I don't have the time. Where is the time to read Bhagavad Gita? Where is the time to chant my japa? It's difficult, we get that. But it may not be possible to chant all your rounds in the morning because everybody has different circumstances, but finish those rounds in the day. If you're working a strict office hours, do most of your rounds in the morning. Lunchtime, chant your rounds and then take your prasad and finish your rounds in good time. So in that way it can be done. Prabhupada explains that even work in the material world becomes transcendental when it is done for Krishna. Mustn't be done for our ego or for any fruitive desire or results. Right? So practically, as I said, if you work, mentally offer your job to Krishna. Offer your studies to Krishna. Offer your chores to Krishna. How are you going to offer your job to Krishna? Does anybody know? What does Prabhupada mean by that? You could be doing any job, right? Mataji? Absolutely. So the money you receive for that job, what you get paid, you engage it in the service of Krishna. That's how you're offering your job to. You say, I am working for the devotees. I am working for Krishna. You know, when you please Krishna's devotees, you are pleasing Krishna very much. He likes you to please and worship his devotees more than you actually worship him. He loves his devotees. So, take that Lakshmi, do some service for the devotees. Buy some food stuff, cook it, offer it to Krishna. Distribute that prasadam. You may not be able to do it every day, but now and then you can do it. Put some grains for the birds. Can you all hear the birds chirping? So, put some of those maha grains out there. The birds will eat it. The ants will eat it. These are practical ways, right? Begin your task by chanting and praying briefly. Before you start your work, read one verse of Bhagavad Gita. Right? Pray. Even if at work, you can keep a picture. If your job permits it, have a little altar in your office. It encourages other people as well. They get curious and they want to know, what is this? And then you tell them a little bit about it. It becomes preaching. So then what's happening? You're engaging the tongue, right? Your speech. You're engaging hearing, you hearing it, and somebody else is hearing it. So you see, those are also part of the 9 processes of devotional service. So keep a picture of Krishna as well. Always remember Krishna smaranam. So the more you remember God, the less the modes can act upon you. So by doing these daily tasks and activities, your remembrance will increase. Also gratitude. We must offer gratitude. Everything comes from Krishna. We shouldn't just say, yes, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Krishna Supreme Controller, or you the cause of all causes. We must really take it within our hearts and feel gratitude for that. So where is the rain coming from? Yeah, Indra Dev is sending the rain, but who's sanctioning it? Krishna. So we must be grateful for that rain. It sustains us, gives us food grains, right? Be grateful for that. Just be grateful to Krishna in every activity. Before eating, before sleeping, before leaving home. Actually, even before and after your bath. Oh Krishna, this water has come from your lotus feet. We all know that pastime. Mother Ganga came out of the feet of the Lord. And the force was so strong that Mother Earth couldn't take it. So Lord Shiva, being one of the topmost devotees of the Supreme Lord, served the Supreme Lord in this way. And he formed a ban, a jata, with his long hair. And he caught Mother Ganga in his hair. You'll see pictures and paintings of Mother Ganga flowing out of Lord Shiva's head very gradually and gracefully to the earth. So be grateful to Krishna. Krishna, you have given us this water. Thank you so much. Right? So in these ways, we remember Krishna. So let's talk about a few pastimes, right? Got a few minutes, about 10, 15 minutes left. So a few pastimes regarding this remembrance. Draupadi. Everybody know who Princess Draupadi was? Yeah? The wife of the Pacho, the 10 Pandavas. So Draupadi was a very, very, very devoted personality. Very great devotee of Krishna. She always remembered him. She took Krishna as her brother. That was her rasa, her relationship with Krishna. Draupadi was being insulted in this big assembly of the Kauravas in this palace after some dice game, some gambling game between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And the Pandavas lost because the Kauravas cheated. Duryodhana and gang, they cheated. So Arjuna and his brothers lost, and what did they do? They asked for Draupadi as the token of their winning. And what did Dushashan do? He started disrobing her and insulting her in that big assembly. And nobody stood up to assist her. So Draupadi was crying out. She was crying out, and she was holding on tightly to her sari. Right? Tightly to her sari. And as much as she cried out, she called the names of her husbands and everyone, and nobody could help her. Eventually, she screamed for the Supreme Lord. And Krishna, prior to that, had promised Draupadi that he will always protect her. So Draupadi raised both her arms up. And when she did that, it meant full surrender. And speaking of full surrender, just remind you, we will speak about King Bali and the Vamanotar, right? Raised her hands up and she goes. She screams out for Krishna. Oh Govinda, oh Dwarikadhish. At that time, Krishna was ruling Dwarika, right? Oh Dwarikadhish, Shri Krishna, Keshava. She called out for him with absolute love and devotion. She remembered him. So in this pastime we see surrender and remembrance. And Krishna came to her aid immediately. Right? He came how? How did Krishna come? Anybody knows? How did Krishna manifest in that pastime? Yes, in the form of cloth, of a sari. So he added to the sari that was being disrobed. And poor Dushashan. He was absolutely exhausted because the more he tugged at her sari and the more he pulled, the more material was being created by Krishna. Right? So anyway, Dushashan felt very defeated and humiliated. That's that. Then the next example we can use of remembrance is Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was such a wonderful devotee. Prahlad Maharaj, although born in the family of demons, was a pure devotee of the Lord. He listened to Srimad Bhagavatam while still in the womb of his mother. So therefore it's so important also for mothers that are carrying their babies, that are pregnant, to be engaged in this hearing, in this listening, because it has an impact, direct impact to the unborn child. His consciousness becomes purified. So when Prahlad Maharaj was born, he was already so knowledgeable. And he started preaching to all his classmates and everyone about God consciousness. Of course, that we know the pastime, how that angered his father Hiranyakashipu, and how Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Bhakta Prahlad so many times because of this, because he was a demon. In any event, Prahlad Maharaj remembered the Lord at every step of the way. Even when they tried to throw Prahlad Maharaj off this cliff, Prahlad Maharaj puts his hands together, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, carried on chanting. The Lord caught Prahlad Maharaj. When Prahlad's aunt, Holika, sat with him in that fire in attempt to burn Prahlad, he said, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And what happened? Holika got burnt. But Prahlad was saved. At every step, Prahlad remembered the Lord, to the point where the Lord appeared as Nrsingadev. Look at the Lord's mercy. For his pure devotee, he appeared as Nrsingadev, half man, half lion. And of course, there's reasons for that, right? Because the boon or the benediction that was given to Hiranyakashipu was, by Lord Brahma, was that Hiranyakashipu did not want to be killed inside the house or outside the house. Not in the air, not on the ground. Not with any kind of weapons. Not at night, not in the morning. So who can be smarter than the Lord? Source of creation? No one. So Krishna manifested as half man, half lion. He wasn't man. He wasn't animal. He killed him at dusk. Not in the night, not in the morning. He killed him at the doorstep. Not inside the house, not outside the house. He killed him with his nails. Shila tanka nakala ye. From Nishinga Pranams. With his nails. Not with any weapons. So there we have it. Okay, so that's on remembrance. Gajendra. Who knows the pastime of Gajendra? The elephant, the great devotee. I know you all know it. You're just acting humble. It's okay. So, Gajendra, the elephant. There's a long pastime to that. But I will tell you about the pastime of Gajendra while he was in the body of the elephant. We'll start from there. So, Gajendra was a very pure devotee of the Lord as well. One day, Gajendra goes to bathe in the river. And Gajendra was caught by a crocodile. So, when the crocodile got hold of Gajendra, what did Gajendra do? He remembered. He remembered the Supreme Lord. He remembered Govinda. And he called out for Krishna. So there's a verse that I found, Gajendra's prayer, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? It's 832 is the reference. Shri Gajendra Uvacha Om Namo Bhagavate Tasme Yata Echachi Atmakam Purushayadi Bhijaya Pareshaya Vidhimahi. So, what did Gajendra say? He's praying now. At the time of death, almost gonna die, he says. Gajendra, the king of elephants, said, O my Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. From you come this material manifestation and the subtle body, and its source, the total material energy. You are supreme. How many of us can think like that at the time of leaving the body? We wish, right? I'm sure a lot of us can. There's a lot of senior devotees here, practicing devotees. I pray that you'll bless me to remember. So, there's a prayer by King Kulashekar also. Very nice prayer that he offers to the Lord. Before that, he gives a nice description of the Supreme Lord, right? So, you know how he describes the Lord, the beautiful peacock feather, wearing this yellow cloth, and this beautiful smiling face. So let's see if I remember. Remembrance, see? To practice to remember, right? Vamshi vibhushita karan navaniradhabhat pitambara dharunabhim bapala dharushtat purnendu sundara mukha arvind netrat Krishnat param kimapita tvamaham na jane Krishnat vadiya padapankaj panjarante adhyeva me vishatuma nasaraja hansa prana prayana samaye Kapavat pite Kantavarodhanavidau smaranam kutaste. So it's a beautiful description of Krishna. With his beautiful smiling face, this peacock feather, wearing this yellow dhoti. And King Kulushekar says that, oh Krishna, I know no one else but you and your beautiful form. And he prays to Krishna and says, at the time of death, when this throat is choking up with mucus and so forth, how am I going to remember you? What a beautiful prayer. If we can meditate on that prayer daily, I'm sure Krishna will take mercy and we'll get some help. Yeah, so now that's on all the different pastimes we touched base on, and that summarizes the 3 modes of material nature, chapter 14. So we've done a summary of chapter 13 and chapter 14. Do we have any realizations to share? Please, most welcome. We've got 5 minutes. Any realizations? So, yes, thank you, Prabhu. I had my eyes closed. Krishna in the form of Krishna is the ability in man. Let's not forget now. Let's not ego get into our hearts. Krishna is the ability in the man. 15:15. He is manifest in the form of remembrance. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto matah smriti jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda ved eva chaham. 15:15. It's a very nice verse. I often quote that, and I want to read the translation of that word for word, so I'm just going to reference it very quickly here. I like chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme. But Prabhupada says that Krishna's pastimes, and obviously in relation to Bhagavad Gita as well, every page or every verse that you read is so sweet. So Prabhupada says that Krishna's pastimes is like a sweet ball, referring to a laddu, right? So any part of the laddu that you bite from is sweet. So any pastime of Krishna you relate to here too is sweet. Any verse that you read is sweet, full of nectar. So the translation of that verse, right? I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So from him comes remembrance and forgetfulness. Confusing, right? Krishna confuses us, right? How can he be remembrance and forgetfulness? Does anybody know? Absolutely. So if you want to, let's go back to chapter 13. Remember we used the analogy from scripture. The 2 birds sitting on the tree. One is super soul and one is Jivatma, us, right? So when we want to forget Krishna and we're busy eating the fruits of material nature and enjoying the fruits of material nature, then that's when Krishna applies this verse here, 15:15, and he manifests in the form of forgetfulness. And when we want to remember him, when that bird turns and looks at Krishna, then he manifests in the form of remembrance. Prabhu, any comment? Any other comments? Anybody wants to add anything? And then after that we can conclude. I'm glad that we finished it. There were some verses that I didn't read, but we went through them. So, coming back to this remembrance and forgetfulness. Also, forgetfulness, Krishna, how many of us remember our past lives? That would be really disastrous. So Krishna knows what he's doing. He makes us forget our past lives. We mustn't dwell in the past. Let's focus on current. Focus on how to advance in Krishna consciousness. And we've been through so many different examples here. So even, when we spoke about that example of offering prasadam, offering food stuff and taking it as prasadam, and we said share, we must share. And we said that put some grains out for the birds and the ants and other living entities and share with your neighbors, your friends, whoever. Also water, how do you share with the plants? You know that maha water that we get from the altar? We mustn't selfishly take it for ourselves. That too we share not only with humans. What about the plants? Can give them some too, isn't it? Hare Krishna, thank you Mataji. Must. And sometimes we have to extend the maha water. Maha is pure. It does not lose its potency. So we can add more normal water to it, make it extra, and let more people have. If circumstances are like that, and you feel like now you're going to run out. Okay, so shall we conclude then? Hare Krishna, thank you very much for your time and attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gita Jayanti Mahamahotsav ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the Semel devotees. Hare Krishna. Please forgive me if I've made any mistakes or caused any offenses. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.